My name is Jody Nally. I'm a White Mills treatment operator slash maintenance. We had the Lakewood elementary school kids here for a plant tour, and we took the whole school. It is important so we can train the next generation of water treatment plant operators. It's becoming a field that there's not very many people in. All right, are y'all ready?
Yeah.
All right, like he said, don't touch no buttons, okay? No buttons. And when you go up the stairs, hold the handrails, all right? All right. So, you guys already kind of have an idea of what this is, correct?
Yes.
All right. So, you guys know what that is?
Yes. It's a water tank.
Okay. That one right there is in Cecilia. Does everybody know where Cecilia is?
Yes.
All right. Does anybody want to take a guess how many gallons of water in that tank?
500,000 million by
Somewhere around in there. Go ahead.
360?
More than that.
2 million gallons.
It's not quite 2 million. It's 1 million gallons in that tank. So when it's at 40 feet of that level, that's 1 million gallons of water in there. We turn that tank over 3 to 4 times a day. You know what that means? It means that the city uses 3 to 4, maybe 5 million gallons off that tank a day, just by itself. And then we have Pear Orchard, you have Ronnieville, you have Eastview. Does anybody live in Eastview? Out in this area? So that's where your water comes from. We pump from here to that tank, and then from that tank it goes out 84. Yes, sir?
Where does Elizabethtown get their water?
So Elizabethtown does a couple things. So we have a separate treatment plant in Elizabethtown. It's called City Springs. They only have one of these cones, whereas we have 3. But what they do, they fill their towers in E-Town. They also borrow water from us. So they get it from Buffalo Creek, which is on the other side of town. They get it from Ring Road, Oaklawn, and Southside. Southside is on this end near the WK. So we have pipes that connect us to them, and then they can take water from us and put it in the tanks, and that's how they keep themselves full. Go ahead.
I live in Rhineyville.
Rhineyville, all right. So that tank right there, that's where you get your water from. We pump it from here to Cecilia, from Cecilia to Rhineyville. Go ahead.
My dad lives in Cecilia.
Your dad lives in Cecilia? Well, see, that's where he's getting his drinks from right there.
He lives in Smith Mills.
That's right. Yeah, it comes from us. Actually, being that close, he probably gets it from Eastview, the Eastview tank. That's the pressure zone that he's in. Is there any other questions on any of that?
My grandpa lives in
He does. So that's where he's getting his water from. So these buttons in behind me, these 3 pumps here, 1 through 3, they feed Eastview. And then 4 through 8, that feeds Cecilia. So in the bottom of Cecilia tank, there's actually 2 more pumps that we can run right there to feed the rest of the system. That's the only tank that has pumps in it. The rest of them are just open well tanks. Is there any other questions? Go ahead.
Are those like the one at the bottom right there, beside the blue one to the left? Is that just like a smaller water tank?
What, these right here or this one right here?
That one right there.
So this one right here is a smaller tank. It's just 500,000 gallons. It's just a smaller capacity. Depending on what the use is in the area, so if you just say you have 20 customers, you may not need the service capacity as you do for 100 customers. Does that make sense? So you don't need as much water to supply that same pressure. Go ahead.
How come the Eastview tank, how come it doesn't have a top like the Cecilia?
Okay, so these are what they call hydropillars. So the water is stored in the top of the tank, whereas this is called a, I have to think of how they have to say it, it's called a standpipe. So the water is the complete distance of the pipe. We only let that water get down to 98 feet. So when it says 90 feet, 98 feet is where we go to, and then from that, we fill it back up to the top, which is 113. So it always keeps a certain amount of water in it, so it keeps the same amount of pressure. Make sense? All right. Go ahead.
What if one of those exploded?
It shouldn't. It shouldn't explode.
But what if it was holding too much water in it?
So on the back side of these tanks, there's pipes, And if we overfill them, which we do, water just spills out on the ground behind the tank. So it wouldn't overfill the tank, it just dumps out. Same thing goes with Eastview, same goes here. All the tanks are the same thing. Okay? All right, go ahead. So these that are spinning, that means that pump, that's a motor down there, it's actually running. It's showing that we have flow. We're actually flowing 3,341 gallons a minute from Cecilia to Pear Orchard and Ronnieville.
Wow.
Yes?
How many of all those water towers do you have in the world?
We have 14 total in our system. I think they're coming upstairs on us, ain't they? Well, we'll go to the, depends on where he's going. We're gonna go over to the back T, the lab, and then we'll go to the back T lab, okay?
Okay.
Yes, sir?
That one, the Cecilia one,
Uh-huh.
that one line was about it. Does that mean it doesn't have as much water as it should?
Correct. So when it gets to 19, that's when we'd fill it back up. That's the cycle. We have to turn the water over. Let's go over there and we'll answer your questions. Yes, ma'am.
What is the most important control in this building? Number 4.
The flow of water coming into the plant. This is where we actually monitor the water that comes into the plant. So we have to check the water for how much dirt it has in it. We check it to know what kind of chemicals we need to add, like polymer. We add polymer when there's a lot of dirt in the water. It takes the dirt out of it. We also do tests on how much chlorine it's going to take care of the plant. Does everybody know what we use chlorine for?
Clean the water?
Yes, so it's actually to disinfect the water. It's kind of the same thing, and it was explained to me.
Kills the germs.
Correct. It doesn't actually take anything out. All it does is kills it.
Again, same thing.
So the filters are what do the cleaning on the water. They actually take everything out of it. We just disinfect with the chlorine. The little jars you see running behind you, that's what we call a jar test. So what they do is they check the water that flows right there through the pipe on the sink. That flows 24 hours a day. As long as this plant's running, that's flowing. And what we do is we pull samples off of that to make our jar test to know how much polymer we need to add for the rate we're running. So just say you're in here working, and he dumps over some bleach on me, and it's burning me. You would stand under that, you'd pull that, and it would run fresh water down over top to wash your skin off. It's really there to make sure that to get whatever you've got on you, dilute it and off of you. Go ahead.
What if you forget to clean out the dirt? What will happen to you?
If we forget to clean out the dirt, we cannot let water get out of this plant that's over a certain level of NTUs. So we would know when it got to the end that we didn't get it that far, and we'd have to dump that water. Anyone else? Go ahead.
Don't we use chlorine in the pool?
Yes, they use it to disinfect their pool, to keep algae from growing and things like of that nature. Go ahead. This right here, that's for checking the pH in the water. So we have to make sure we keep a certain level of pH in the water so it doesn't hurt you. Uh-oh. How about you?
What's pH?
pH? All right, so have you ever heard of acids and bases? Okay, so what's an acid? What's it considered? What level is it considered? So it goes all the way down to like a 1, right? 1 to 3.5. And then you got your neutrals is a little bit above, which is 5 to 7, right? And then 7 to 14 is your bases, right? Correct? So what is a soap? It's a base. If you rub soap long enough in your fingers, it'll do what acids to do. It'll take skin off if you rub it long enough. So that's why we want to stay in the center of the pH scale, which is 7, what is it, 7.4? 7.2, 7, yes, 7.2, 7.4. Yep. And we do that so it's neutral. Does it make sense? So it don't corrode pipes and things like that. Go ahead.
So if you open your eyes under a chlorinated pool, does it affect your eyes?
It can. It can hurt your eyes over time. All right, so we're going to move through to the Bac-T lab. Now in this lab, whatever you do, don't put your hands on anything in there, okay? I'll tell you why when we get in there, all right?
Did you say Bac-T?
Yeah,
Bacteria lab.
smart kid. We go on in there. Go ahead. Okay, so the bacteria that we're most concerned about in water is E. coli. Okay? E. coli occurs, does everybody know how it occurs? All right, so you got cows in the field, right? Right?
Yes.
So they just kind of do their thing out in the field, right? They just live out there. All right, so when it rains, it washes all that down. It gets into the river, right? So what's it do? It just flows downstream and we suck water out of the river, right?
Yes.
So there's a small amount of E. coli always in the water. So that's one of the reasons why we use chlorine to disinfect the water, is to kill off the E. coli. Go ahead.
But once you chlorinated the water, how do you take the chlorine out of it?
Okay, so when you put chlorine in water and you add it to it, just say you added 50 parts. Well, the bacteria in the water needed 50 parts to be killed off. So guess what happens? You no longer have chlorine. It used all the chlorine to disinfect, so therefore you have a neutral.
So it just takes in the chlorine?
Correct. It will, whenever it's in its process of disinfecting, it absorbs the chlorine and the chlorine just dissipates. Go ahead.
What happens if the cow does something gross and it washes into the river?
If you what?
If the cow did something gross and it washed into the river.
Well, that's where the E. coli comes from. It's in the feces from the cows. So in this lab here, we actually grow bacteria so we can test it against bacteria that's out in the field. So anytime we have a main break, a line break, or any of that source, we have to do routine samples. They also do samples out in the field to make sure that all the water is in good shape, right? So you see them guys every once in a while, they got a fire hydrant just blowing water off for no reason. They're doing routine samples or flushing the line for low chlorine levels in the water. Go ahead.
How many people work in this place?
In this place total is 16 total for White Mills, including myself. Now, as a district, we have 80 employees. Go ahead.
What's that?
That right there is an eye wash station. So, remember the shower that I said you'd get if you get, well, just say you get chemicals in your eyes. That is to wash the chemical out of your eye. Okay? Go ahead.
When you said not to touch anything, why are you putting your hand on the counter?
Well, I work in this, so I know what's here and what's not there. I just don't want you guys to get sick. Go ahead.
What if you work here and you accidentally get something in your eye and that wasn't
Okay, there's other eye wash stations throughout the plant that we would go to. And then if it's beyond what we can get, we would go seek medical attention. Go ahead.
But if there's only that one and that, would you have to go to that one just like that?
You could do that. Go ahead.
Why does it say drinking water only?
All right, so you do not want to have anything else in here besides water. So you wouldn't want to bring food into the bacteria lab. You wouldn't want to bring any type of soft drink because of sugars and things like that. You do not want to contaminate this area with any of that. Make sense? All right, so now you guys ready to see out in the cone area?
Yeah.
Actually see the water? All right, y'all got a lot of great questions. Okay, so the water comes in from the river, 62 feet. So,
You're the first one going down.
so the water comes in through the river, comes up through the head tank. From the head tank, it flows into 3 of our cones. It comes in through the bottom of the cone, and as it's coming up, it goes through what you can kind of see a black area. That's the blanket. So the blanket is made up of dirt and polymer, okay? So it's not technically a real blanket, it's just what we call it here. As the water comes through that blanket, it clears out. As you can see, the water's really clear that's flowing over into the side. At this time,
Why does it sound like a waterfall?
I'll show you. I'll show you. So at this time, we actually add the chlorine. We add the chlorine right here to disinfect. You see the bubbles?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're adding chlorine to this water. From here, oh, you're right.
How many gallons of chlorine are added a day?
So we do not measure in gallons on chlorine. We measure in pounds because it's a gas.
That's true.
So we can range anywhere depending on our rate. We're gonna stay right over there, okay? Anything on our rate, about 300 pounds a day. Okay, so here's the process. This is how it happens. The water flows out of the top of the cones. It flows over into the collecting trough, which is the top. It flows down and it comes through some blue pipes. We'll see them in the bottom. Comes up into the center of the trough. And from the center of the trough, it flows over, down through filters, and that's where you get your clean water at the bottom. And the reason why that has
Why is it brown?
that's a potassium. We add potassium to the water to help disinfect.
What's that big warm thing right there? Is that
Yeah, that
goldfish?
No, that's the pipe that comes in.
I was gonna ask if it's the pipe.
I hope not. But if we do, we'll have to try to get you out.
Earned it.
All right, we'll do this one at a time. That way people can see over in the tank. That way you don't get too overwhelmed, all right? So inside this tank, this is the water that comes in through the river. This is what we call our head tank. You can stand, you want to stand right there? You can look over in there.
I'm tall. Wow, cool. What's that black stuff?
The black stuff that we add in is carbon. It's for taste and odors. It's carbon for the taste and odors
Why is it all black on it?
because the carbon attaches to anything it touches. No, it's carbon.
Is that a picture of the bottom?
No, the water comes up through the center of the pipe and then it dumps over through the top and flows out to the sides, okay?
What is the pump for?
That's a float. That tells us how much water is in the head tank.
So why is it black on the bottom?
Where we add the carbon, it just mixes on the walls. Yes?
How deep is this?
This is, I think the water currently is 50 feet deep right now. Let's go down. Oh, wow.
I'm surprised y'all can withstand that looks like the water slide. Where you just go, woo!
Yeah.
Where'd that?
Everybody knows what the top look like, correct? And so, all right. So you asked what if it overflows? It should not overflow because if it ever gets above what the filters can handle, the water will go into the trough and go out through the waste. So in theory, it should never overflow onto us, okay? All right, so what happens is the water comes down from the top of the cone. It goes in these blue pipes. The light blue is water going into the top of the filter, all right? So that's what you see bubbling up through the top of the filter. As it goes down through the filters, it comes down and goes into these blue pipes. This blue pipe right here is clean drinking water. You can drink this water right out of the pipe, all right? So the light blue is what we call backwash water, and it's clean water that we use to clean the filters.
What's the green pipe for?
The green right here, this is for air. What we do is when we clean these filters, we push air through the bottom and make them bubble, and that gets all the dirt out. Go ahead.
What is that?
What is what?
What is That's the ball.
That is called a clarifier.
It's big.
Yep, it's tall.
That's the ball of the slide at Holiday World.
Go ahead.
So that stuff that I asked that was bubbling up, that keeps bubbling up, is it bubbling from there?
It's from air getting inside the water, and as the water comes up, the air's come out. No, it's strictly from that. Okay, has anybody got any questions? Go ahead.
What happens if every single one of these pipes burst out at the same time?
I don't know, we have a mess. Let's just hope it don't happen. Okay?
Let's find out.
No. All right.
Yeah.
So we'll go back up the stairs and we'll finish the tour, okay?
Did someone push a button?
No, somebody coming in the gate.
I want to push a button.
Go through that door right there.